Lucius and our firm represented Dr. King on those last days when he was here in Memphis, the 3rd and 4th of April, 1968. In April, Jim Lawson and I continued to talk about what we could do to carry on after Dr. King's death, the kind of things he was interested in here in Memphis. Since I was a lawyer, one of those things obviously was, how do we get legal services to people like garbage workers, people that aren't making enough money to afford a lawyer, but desperately need it in housing issues, employment issues, welfare, whatever it was. And so Jim and I talked about that, and he said, if you'll get a group of lawyers to provide the legal work, I'll let you use my church.
The program was originally envisioned by a group of lawyers here in Memphis who contacted the board of directors of the Bar Association, and subsequently we were given supervision authority by the Bar Association. The aims of the Neighborhood Law Office will be to provide counseling and eventually representation where needed for indigent members of the community, that is, people who cannot afford a lawyer.
We started out representing the little people who were in need of legal services. As I mentioned, they lined up around the block and they came, and we saw them at night. And the FED, forced collection detainer, that is being read out of the house. Small claims, questions of maybe quality of purchase. But we were representing the people who needed help.
I didn't really know the politics of the situation at that time. I just remember that I was asked by Mr. Begardner, Irvin Begardner, and John Wall to apply to be the director of this program, which was a concept at that time. And so, being young and dumb and willing to take a challenge, I said yes. Others, such as Ron Barad and Mike Cody, were on the other end of this spectrum to give this program legs, if you will. And I guess in the middle, in retrospect, you had some anchors such as Charles Crump, Emmett Marston, Irvin Begardner, that just gave it stability, if you will. And I and the program owe a debt of gratitude to all of those.
It was about lunchtime, and the noon news came on, and it said that Congressman Dan Kirkendall had announced an award of maybe a couple $100,000 to set up a legal services program in Memphis and Shelby County. And I remember Judge Brown, said to me, you know, whoever takes that job will be a damn fool. Well, it ended up, he was the first director, and I was the second director, so that pretty well characterizes who we are, because we both took the job. I felt then as now that the availability to get into or access to our civil courts is just as critical as the legal assistance that we provide on the criminal side. Now, everybody thinks in terms of, well, if you're accused of a crime, it's unthinkable that you should have to go before the bar of justice without a lawyer. We don't think that way when it comes to the civil side.
Biggest challenge was to change a perception, and I say perception because we had dedicated and long-serving staff, and the community, we had some bumps in the road along the way. We had some challenges with respect to some of the leadership. I recognized that and realized that I had to get down to the nut and bolts of helping change the image and reputation of Memphis Area Legal Services. I encouraged our staff to be participatory in bar activities and to join and participate in the statewide organization which is now Tennessee Alliance for Legal Services. We are part of a family. We are part of a broader community, and that's the message that I want to resonate here in Memphis, in this Memphis-Shelby County community.
It goes beyond the board in terms of being trustees of the organization. I really believe that Memphis Area Legal Services is the responsibility of the entire legal community in Memphis, and even beyond to the larger community, but especially the lawyers in Memphis. That the lawyers in Memphis really have a special responsibility to help and support Memphis Area Legal Services because it's unique. It's the only organization in town that's doing exactly what it's doing. And but for Memphis Area Legal Services, the people that are being helped by Memphis Area Legal Services would not be helped. So it's performing an urgent, unique need that as attorneys in Memphis, we have a special responsibility to support.
Well, I was very fortunate in private practice. I had enjoyed quite a bit of success in a lot of different ways that can be defined. I worked with a great bunch of people in a good law firm, but something was just missing as far as I was concerned. At the time I called it happiness, but I wasn't sure what it was, but I knew that I had to make a change. Someone gave me a copy of a book called The Purpose-Driven Life, and I read the first line of that book, and it said, "It's not about you." And I realized then that's what was missing from my practice of law. It was about me, and it needed to be about other people. Not only is it inspirational, but I'm a better lawyer than I was in private practice. And I'm not sure if I can explain exactly why that is, except that I know it's true.
I've been working for a legal services agency now for over 20 years, and I have the best job on the face of the planet. I help people do the right thing. I help other attorneys be the best attorney that they can be the most professional that they can be by providing them with the opportunity to give back in ways that are meaningful to both themselves and to our community.
I'm an attorney with Golden and Mathis, and I've been practicing in Shelby County since 1988, and I became involved in the legal services, the Attorney for the Day program, probably about maybe 2 years now. We handle cases that come in. You never know what type of case it might be. It might be domestic or collections, Social Security, bankruptcy, whatever. And we handle them until the clients run out that afternoon. And we always need new volunteers. I really enjoy it. It's very fulfilling. It makes you realize when you have more of a creditor-oriented practice like I do, you get jaded, you think, these folks are just trying to beat my client out of something. And if you work at the clinic a couple of times, you'll see that these folks have just fallen on hard times. They're not trying to beat anybody. There but for the grace of God, go you and I.
Doing pro bono work through an organization like Memphis Area Legal Services is critically important to the long-term happiness of any lawyer who practices law. I guess one in particular I can remember, a gentleman that I represented was dying with AIDS, had complications from that, and he was being evicted from public housing. His family had disavowed him. He had nowhere else to go. And right before he walked into the hearing, at which they were trying to kick him out, he looked at me and he said, "I don't want to die homeless." And at that moment I realized that this was really serious. I knew it was serious before, but it was really serious. I'm glad to say that we were able to help him stay in public housing and have somewhere to live until he could pass on.
We do make a promise in this country, and it's a promise of justice. And unfortunately, sometimes it's not there for everybody. And if it weren't for MALS, if we weren't there, then I have to wonder, how would people without means find justice?
Actually lost my job about 2 years before I went to legal services. had started a little business and then developed breast cancer. And about the time I developed breast cancer, my husband was downsized from his company. And so we went from making a good income to minimum wage, supporting 4 people, and we could not pay our mortgage. I called the mortgage company when he lost his job to let them know that we needed to make some sort of arrangement. We're going, wait a minute, what about this help that's supposed to be available, these special mortgages for people in our situation? We felt like if anybody could qualify, it should be us. We were a good credit risk, had an 802 credit rating prior to this happening. So, we had really always paid our bills. And, we just couldn't understand why this was happening. Then my friend told me about legal services. I came here and talked to Gene Sachs. And the day that I came to him, I thought, well, I'm just at my wit's end. Nothing is working. I'm going through cancer treatments on a daily basis. I felt like the whole world was against me. And this was like a port in the storm for me. And he took the case, and he took a real special interest in making sure those documents got to the right people, and he went above and beyond everything to walk this through. We were days away from a sale on the courthouse steps when he got involved, and we're still in our house today thanks to him.
We do handle a very large amount of cases where there are very serious cases as well that may have a huge effect on their lives, such as the variety of them are for domestic violence cases. We do have a large number of clients that suffer through a lot of abuse, and I myself and my family in my past have seen many of those cases and did not have anybody to assist my loved ones. And the fact that I am able to assist and comfort our Spanish-speaking clients, it makes me feel very good inside, you could say.
Esta ha sido la mejor experiencia que he tenido, puedo decir, en mi vida, which means this is one of the most wonderful experiences I have had in my life.
If we didn't have the Family Law Unit at Memphis Area Legal Services, then there would be hundreds of women and children and men that would not have access to legal services. We're one of the only organizations that specifically has an attorney to assist people for their civil orders of protection. There is not an organization that's filling that gap. So if not for that, then there would be several women every month that are unable to represent themselves in court where their abuser has an attorney.
Well, I moved down here from Nashville with my husband. I have no friends, no family down here other than him. And he became very, very abusive, and we had a child together. He stole my son from me and beat me really bad. We walked into court, and he had an attorney and I didn't. So they were just going to dismiss the case, and legal services saw me in there and picked it up. Now filing for divorce, and without the help of legal services, I wouldn't have been able to do any of that.
The need is overwhelming in Memphis, and I say that because Memphis Area Legal Services has increased its productivity over the past few years enormously by leaps and bounds. Nonetheless, we're still turning away about 1 out of 3 eligible clients who desperately need our services. And these aren't people who aren't unworthy, who aren't worthy, or people that could afford a lawyer otherwise. These are people that desperately need help.
And if I hadn't had legal service, I would not have gotten my Social Security at all. I would not have a place to live, nor food to eat, nor anything if legal service hadn't been here.
And there's more and more of those people out there, and unfortunately, there hasn't been a huge increase in resources at Memphis Area Legal Services that are commensurate with the increase in demand. So that's been a huge challenge.
Today's needs are very different than the 1968 needs. Everything changes, and you have to be ready to have your organization alive and vibrant and looking to meet those future changes and needs.
The client-eligible population of Memphis Area Legal Services service area is over 200,000 and growing. With this ever-increasing need, we will rise to the challenge, but we cannot do it alone. Whether you can contribute time, talents, gifts, or all three, Memphis Area Legal Services needs your support to realize our vision of justice for those in need. For more information on how you can support Memphis Area Legal Services, please call 901-523-8822 or visit us on the web at www.malsi.org or look us up on Facebook. Thank you in advance for your support.